Alright everyone, hello, JP the Third here, for Venus Now. Welcome back to our playthrough of Torpor Games' Suzerain. We ended on the circus assassination the last time, and now we get to deal with the fallout. Let's start with the reports. Agnolia. Horton, it's either Horton or Horton. Horton. Nah, none of those work. The leader of Agnolia has diplomatically critiqued the imbalance of trade between our countries. Concerns was raised over how much more Sordland profits from net trade in comparison to Agnolia. That is a fairly easy bridge to cross, though. Republic of Wayland. The latest diplomatic message from the leader of Wayland warned us regarding a pathway from the mountains of Bergia that allowed traders of the state escaping to Sordland. I completely butchered that, but we're gonna go. I don't know if that's just how it's written or not. So basically, he wants us to close our borders so he can commit genocide. I'm pretty sure we're not going to do that, but for now, we can leave that right there. Communist Party leader suspected of bomb attack. 11:40 a.m., an unattended bag in front of the NFP office in Volgan was destroyed by the police on suspicion of a bomb threat, which were then verified. Upon further investigation, the Communist Party leader of Volgan, Milt Hanu, has been arrested. Okay, so here we go. Now we're starting to get that political violence going. Young Sora's youth wing leader dead after terrorist attack. Local Young Sora's youth wing leader in Suzerain Jacques Toyrin, one or the other, has claimed responsibility for the organized attack in the Bludish market that resulted in the death of 7. His base of operations has been raided, and he was found dead inside with 2 bullet wounds to the back of his head. The scene was organized to make it look like suicide. That's troubling. I mean, somebody was pulling his strings and they knew we were getting close. Cash found with Rumberg-made weapons, including 46 K-74s, 2,854 bullets, 12 handguns, 27 grenades, and bomb-making equipment was found in the basement of an abandoned house in Suzerain. No suspects have been detained yet. So the domestic security situation in this country has fallen apart extraordinarily quickly. Police understaffed. Narwhal has reported that it's currently too understaffed to deal with the ongoing political violence. Due to the small size of the police force in the city, they've been working non-stop, and a number of officers were sent to the hospitals as a result of severe fatigue. So yeah, the police are overworked. Illegal firearms found in the Communist Party office. It just does not end. The Ripley Police Department raided the local Communist Party office after alleged attacks organized by one of their members, and found illegal firearms in their office. 22 members was detained. Just Jesus. We received a report of lack of equipment and staff from the police forces in Estert. With the escalating violence in the city, the officers have been working 12-hour shifts to suppress the protests to no avail. Yeah, this situation is untenable. We're going to have to deal with it. Weapons seized in Culture Center. Local police forces report that a wardrobe full of heavy military equipment has been seized in a Young Swords Culture Center in Yin. Or Jin, depending on your pronunciation. The owners of the building have been detained along with 13 other people. The police captured 22 rifles and 2 machine guns. The equipment belongs to the Swordish Armed Forces, dated 1929, but kept in very good condition. So, it makes a bit of sense. It makes a bit of sense that the Young Swords will be getting help from people within the Swordish military, because they're a nationalist organization. We can't take out the entire government and the entire old guard, though. So we're gonna have to find we'll have to find a better way to take care of this issue. Swordish politicians shot dead. This is about a circus. calls for unity. We need more jobs and a safe atmosphere if our country is supposed to grow and prosper. How will we increase our employment and open new factories if there's blood flowing in the streets? I'm sure the heart of Sordland would much prefer a calmer situation, but to be frank, so would I. It looks like the media at least is on, they're united in their discouragement of violence. The tensions between left and right extremists have increased in the country after the assassination of MP Bernard Circus. Protests of the Malian-Yavist groups quickly turned into riots across the country. We are calling for peaceful protests and dialogue instead of violence. After the attack that prompted riots, a member of the Young Swords assassinating a member of the assembly clearly shows that they are willing to use extreme action, said Franz Rector in his speech in the Grand National Assembly. We live within these borders together, and therefore we will bear a responsibility, a duty to live together with our differences. The only way out of recession, bailing out businesses. Just because this is a turn of pace, I will read this one out. Sordland's economy has been displaying a downward trend over the past 2 years of Alphonse's presidency. If we want to prevent our country from declaring bankruptcy, we need a way out of this recession, and we need it now. The economic downturn keeps hitting hard at the businesses which are struggling to stay afloat. It is clear that a helping hand from the government is required to control the situation. There is no other way apart from bailing out businesses to truly provide relief to the economy. This, in turn, should revitalize the economy by creating more employment opportunities and increasing production in Sordland. I'm sure there will be many who read that and say, nah, dog. But that's kind of where we are right now. We'll have to put the economic situation to the side for just a minute. BFF activity in the capital. Chief of Police, Carl Grimes, reports 2 Bludish women with affiliations to the Bludish Freedom Front have been caught in Hosord before they could execute a terrorist attack at a credit rally. Both women are listed as wanted criminals and enemies of the state. The arrested women have admitted their intentions to attack the National Front Party's rally at Salt Square, where Khazar Kibner gave his speech but rejected any connection to the BFF. Both claim they were acting alone. So basically, they were attacking Nazis. I understand, but at the same time, we've got to calm the situation down. This is going far too far. I arrived in front of the doors leading to the Situation Room. Today's security briefing was arranged in 2 parts, starting with internal matters and moving on to external matters after a short break. The Minister of Interior, Lilias Graf, and the Minister of Justice and Law, Nia Morgna, would join us for the first part, the law enforcement briefing. For the second part, the Minister of Defense, Josef Lancia, would join us with a few high-ranking officials, including the Chief of the Armed Forces, Valken Kruger. I opened the door. Lucian, Nia, and Lilias rose from their seats. Sir. I always just enjoyed it. Like, I nodded at Lucian and sat down. Like, that little deference to Lucian, like, because he puts in a lot of work in this game. And if the path goes in the way I want it to go, I'm going to have to explain a few things with Lucian, because I wish the game gave us a few more options with the cabinet, but that's a whole nother thing. Focus, JP, focus. Everyone in the room sat down except Lucian. He put on his glasses and went through the documents in front of him. Shortly after, he raised his head to address the attendees. Mr. President, ladies, we will kick off today's meeting with the internal security briefing. I am assuming everyone has already been over the agenda. We all have busy schedules, so without further ado, I will jump into our first topic. As we feared, the political atmosphere has worsened. The reports around the country indicate that tensions are rising as we feared. What is the status on the Bernard Circus investigation? I have received news this morning that the investigation into the murder of Bernard Circus has concluded. Please enlighten us. The more we know, the better. After further investigation and testimonies, we have confirmed the motive and also the events leading up to the shooting. A few days prior, members of the Red Youth initiated a violent attack on the Young Swords local leader in Yen. We believe the Young Swords then called for revenge, leading to the death of Mr. Circus. Since he often spoke against the Young Swords and nationalist sentiments in the assembly, he was a big target. not to mention his radical communist views. He had it coming then. Again, I love how this game gives you options, and it's very clear, like, depending on the path you want to take, it's very hard to mess up if you're paying attention. This political violence needs to stop. Now. Yes, we've kept it at bay for so long, but it seems that there are now new triggers. Lily has handed over the report and pointed at a highlighted section in the document. The investigation revealed a very troubling fact. The funding source of the Red Youth have a clear link to United Cantana. Are you absolutely sure? Yes, we have found the cash trail. Several Red Youth members with ties to United Cantana have been detained, and the information extracted from them points to a preparation for a communist uprising in Sordland. It isn't unusual for the superpowers to influence other nations, but I think this case is a little far-fetched. The left lacks popular support in Sordland. Nia eagerly lifted her hand. I motioned for her to speak. I went over the report in detail. It would be wrong to jump to conclusions about a clear foreign interference yet. United Cantana has humanitarian and cultural ties with many countries, including Sordland. I also don't want to jump to conclusions. We shouldn't create a crisis with them. Nearly 3 decades ago, they funded General Rickard and tried to establish a communist dictatorship in our country. If it was not for Colonel Saul, we would have seen the real crisis. She took a sip from her glass of water and continued. Our police chief, Carl Greiser, has linked the funding channel to the United Cantana consulate in Benfi. As we all know, the enemies of Sordland are many, but we also have threats inside the country. Okay. Like, all of these are technically fairly good answers. We need to remain vigilant as a people and as a nation. If we give up essential freedoms to purchase temporary security, we deserve neither freedoms nor security. This is debatable, but yes, we know what more security and surveillance cost to this country under President Saul. Let's not forget that President Saul, God bless him, brought stability after a long period of bloodshed and chaos. But moving on. Our highest internal threat comes from the estimated 20,000 strong Bluish Freedom Front, led by the imprisoned Dulan Arga. They're a banned political organization, now a militant force that is trying to incite racial violence. Are they supported by our Bluish citizens? To some extent. Luckily, they couldn't attract a wide audience of Blues, but they could potentially attract thousands if anti-Bluish sentiment spreads in Sordland again. Lily is pointed to page 3 in the report. Our intelligence intercepted 2 crates filled with weapons close to the Runeberg border. They're filled with military-grade K-74s. We expect that more have been smuggled in since a group of Blues were caught with these guns at a checkpoint not far away. Runeberg has been acting aggressively in the region for a long time. I am not surprised that they would attempt to weaponize the Bluish people against us. This is worrying, very worrying. Can we make any direct correlations to blame Runeberg? Not yet, but we have suspects that indicate such correlation. This is grave news, but we must be careful not to stoke the fires of anti-Bluish sentiment. What's the second most important threat? It is the gang violence that's threatening the Nargis and Aglan regions. 2 prominent organized crime families are at war, and the potential for bloodshed is real. Which 2 crime families? One is known as the Coronelli, and the other as the Skinner Cartel. They used to be allies until recent disagreement. Both are active in the cities of Narbel and Esther. They are playing with fire. I want them gone, for good. While I agree it will make Sordland a better place, it will not be easy. These gangs exist because corruption is so common in our country. They buy our police officers and slip by checkpoints. Let us grasp sighed deeply. I'm sure she did. I shall be honest with you. With our current capabilities, we may not be able to prevent the further arming of separatists while maintaining order in Bergia, Nargis, and Anglan. You promised to increase Sordland's security and law enforcement budget. You must keep that promise. We will keep to that promise, especially in light of all this information. Yeah, that is... I said it at the beginning, and that is key to the entire reformist strategy. You can't do anything with chaos in the country. You simply can't. So the first step is to get the country under control. Then you can start making the necessary changes. We will rid our country from separatists and violent thugs if you can support us. I wish you would stop using the word thugs, Lilius. The real problem is corruption, which is fueling the gang violence and is very likely the reason that these weapons were smuggled in. A higher budget can help us in that. Your ministry must tackle the issues with persistence, Ms. Morna. We are, but it needs all the attention it can get from our administration. Lilius and Nia were openly scowling at each other. Lilius turned back to her nose. I probably should have read that in a darker tone. Lilius is more old school, and Nia is definitely more of a reformist. Well, this concludes the topics for the internal portion. Thank you for the updates, Mrs. Graff, Mrs. Morna. And thank you for the overview. Have a good day. Until next time. The two ministers left the room. We took a short break before continuing to the second part. Upon invitation, Joseph Lancey, along with three high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense, walked into the room. One of the men was none other than General Kruger, the chief of the armed forces. Joseph made his way towards the table while the others stood by the door. Mr. President. Joseph, welcome. I brought General Kruger with me due to the escalation on our borders. General Kruger stepped forward and saluted. He had a strong jaw with sharp cheekbones. His tall stature, uniform, and medals combined with his deep and intense stare made him look threatening. Yeah. That is accurate. He was in his 70s, yet he had the bulky body that was the result of his commando training. Not only was he the second most decorated officer in Sordland, he was also the longest serving. I saluted him. He smiled at the gesture and bowed his head in respect. Joseph tapped his foot impatiently. He seemed uneasy with the presence of another high-ranking officer in the room. Gentlemen, thank you for coming to this significant gathering. Let's begin. Joseph and Vulcan took their seats at the table while the rest of the officers stood by the door. Mr. President, the situation at the western and northern borders towards Lotherberg is very tense. We are observing deployments of the divisions close to our borders. Lotherberg has been acting increasingly expansionist in the past decades, and also interfered in Agnolia, but now they have turned their sights on us. What is your current strategy? Patrolling close to the borders with our border force and keeping armor reserve divisions near. It seems like they want to increase the pressure both externally and internally. Mr. President, if I may? Please, General. The picture is becoming clearer. The latest information from the interior about the weapons caches, and now there is an active military buildup close to our borders. The entire situation was analyzed by our General Staff, and our prediction is a future territorial incursion by Lotherberg. I have complete trust in the General Staff. We will not let you down, Mr. President. The General Staff is composed of the smartest military individuals. I require an increase in the military budget to enlist more soldiers. Only then we can stand strong against our enemies. The enlarged armed forces will hold them at bay. Vulcan is right. We do need an increase in the military budget. Although we don't see eye to eye on exactly how to spend the budget, that much we can agree on. I have my concerns about Lotherberg too. We need strong allies to withstand such a superior power. They are our nemesis. That is an understatement. Times are changing and war is coming, Mr. President, whether we like it or not. We must be prepared. This is where literally everybody who plays this game, no matter what route they do, this is where they make the mistake. Because they all assume that there's a way around this with, 20 and 21st century logic. But there just isn't. You're in the, well, not 20th century, but definitely 21st century logic. I've literally seen the streams of people like, I don't want to intensify or antagonize the situation. And yet, right here, you have your entire military telling you, "Yeah, no, we need to fight. We need to do something because they're coming." So it's just something you got to keep in mind that if you're playing this game, no matter what route you do, the military is literally right in front of your face, expecting you to be a strong leader. You do not get the option of, well, let's just hope for the best. It's not going to happen. During the election, you said nothing about focusing on our military. I ask you to reconsider and increase the military budget. The future and safety of Sordland is in your hands. As you said, times change, Joseph. We will see. A smile brought a glimmer of hope on Joseph's face. Our forces will crumble under a decrease, and Lotherberg will be much more compelled to exploit our weaknesses. Our country hasn't fallen to an invading force for 200 years. You cannot let it happen, Mr. President. We should find regional allies like Volksland or Lesbia to deter Lotherberg. There are several options on the table. Sordland must be able to stand on its own 2 feet and be able to defend itself. Of the same mind, sir. We stand strong as we've always done. Everyone fell silent when the soldier entered the room and let Joseph Lancier know that a call had come through the ministry. Excuse me, Mr. President. Joseph left the room to answer. A few minutes later, he entered the room again. His expression had changed. Mr. President, there has been Lotherbergian military activity close to the Narble border. I just spoke with the local commander. Vulcan, we should go to the ministry and get further updates from our branches. Understood. Raising military readiness is the first call of action. If there's truly an extraordinary attempt, we will relay it to you immediately and wait for further orders, Mr. President. Make sure they know we are observant and ready. Always watching, always ready is our motto, sir. Hail, Sordland! Hail! They saluted and left the room. Lotherberg was already testing us, and the reports from the interior indicates interference inside our borders. Communists, nationalists, brutish rebels, Lotherberg expansionism. What was next? Sordland had always been a key piece in the chessboard of the global rivalry between Arcadia and United Cantana. But in the recent years, there was no such aggression from Lotherberg. Not at these levels at least. All it takes is one tiny spark to start the flames of war. The phone rang. Lotherberg has decided to close their consulate in Lokoven. See, they are planning war. There's no other way to talk about it. Check. Nationwide revolt that we are gonna have to put down. There's no other way to say it. Diplomatic pressure from Lotherberg. Let's check the papers right quick. Rumors of an infrastructure project. Trying to put their thumb on the scales for the companies they want to win. Gang of violence claimed the young girl's life. 15-year-old girl was shot dead in Narble as she was walking her dog a few blocks away from her apartment. The police said the shooting, which occurred in an area affiliated with the gang Cornelli, was a reckless act of violence, and the victim was not the target. 1927, never again. Yeah, this is fun. The real truth behind the economic crisis. We have all seen the scenario played before. Large corporate businesses, time and time again, receive money from the government under the disguise of helping the economy. But what about the people? Many of the neglected regions still do not have electricity or fresh water in their homes, and they are lucky ones. There is a growing housing crisis and people on the streets, begging for food, in the year of 1954. It's high time that money was invested on us, the people of Sordland, instead of armchair millionaires in their luxurious villas. 1827, never again. I was there when General Lutheran and Rickard clashed in the plains outside of Holsword, when the armies of the Swedish people killed each other. I was there when Colonel Saul won the war after bombarding cities with Swedish civilians inside them. We saw this great nation fall into bloodshed and chaos. We thought that we learned our lesson and formed a new republic. But one man's idea became the idea of the state, and we allowed it to be forced upon us. We were a generation who lived with Tark and Saul for most of our lives. However, this generation is different. Our kids have not experienced civil war or martial law. This generation is born in a changing time. We cannot allow the same conditions to return. We cannot forget where General Lutheran declared martial law in 1927, when his tanks rolled and murders took place. Those tanks cannot roll again. Bonds cannot fall again. Freedoms cannot be suspended again. 1927, never again. Now, I will say, like, this is definitely... There are some... The other papers have their editorial bends, but the Radical is definitely more poetic. Underhall construction. And if you were wondering why a Heart of Sordland newspaper was pushing underhall construction, well, veteran industry leader Shar congratulated the employees first and foremost in a private company meeting held at the luxurious resort in Ellery. He also mentioned the recent addition of Heart of Sordland organization CEO Marcel Caranti to the board of advisors helped immensely in this great achievement. As economists, we think now is a great time to invest in underhaul construction, as the current year's projection already shows a 13% increase in growth compared to last year. Gee, I wonder why Heart of Sordland wants us to go with them. Like, people think corruption is this real cloak and dagger behind the scenes kind of move. No, very often it's just like that. It is that blatantly obvious. This is the news about the consulate closing. At least like the media sees, because they're flat out saying right here, this can be easily regarded as a one-sided provocation from the North. Everybody knows it's them. It's just that nobody can stop them right now. Around midnight, youth protesters clashed with young swords at the Versailles City Center, resulting in many injuries. The counter-protesters were cornered in front of United Cantana Embassy. After they were pushed back by the police, the embassy opened its doors and red youth members escaped inside. The police are still waiting outside the building for the return of your youth members. Well, y'all can wait in there all day if you want, but yeah, we're gonna get you. Intelligence reports that Al-Qaeda has successfully completed the Missile 4, an intercontinental ballistic missile which has the estimated capability to accurately destroy targets at thousands of kilometers range. Al-Qaeda missile capabilities have significantly increased, posing a threat to territories that are further away from Western Maricopa. Basically, that's a warning to us that we may want to consider what will happen if they can hit us without even stepping foot on our territory. Something to keep in mind. After a long day at the palace, I was finally home. I thanked Sergei and walked through the front gates, nodding at the two guards as I went by. Even as I turned the doorknob, I could hear Deanna rushing down the stairs to greet me. I opened the door and there she was, standing in front of me with expectant eyes. Papa, you're home. I lifted Deanna up and hugged her while trying to put the keys in the tray next to the entrance. She was going fast. Lifting her up was no longer as easy as it once was. How was school? Boring. I like my old school better. I put her down and her expression turned serious. Papa, are the bad men gone? There was only one bad man, Deanna. And yes, he's gone now. Okay, Papa. Deanna dashed down the hallway. Mama, Papa's here. Monica appeared next to the kitchen door. She was wearing an apron holding a spatula in her hand. Deanna, what did I tell you? No running in the house. Yes, Mama. Monica approached me and kissed me on the cheek. A tantalizing smell wafted from the kitchen behind her. Darling, you shouldn't have. What do we have a cook for? I felt like going grocery shopping, just like old times. And besides, she can't make your favorite like I can. You mean... Yes. Fably? Close enough. Fably was a classic Horsford delicacy. Vegetables and creamy sheep cheese sandwiched between thin layers of dough. It was absolutely my favorite dish, especially paired with cabbage, a potent, unfiltered rind from Bergen. I kissed Monica on the cheek. I just wanted to cheer everyone up a bit. Her smile faded and she lowered her voice so Diana wouldn't hear. Especially after what happened at the ball. I'm worried, Anton. For you, for the children, and for the country. Diana suddenly appeared next to us. Mama? Yes, sweetheart? I'm hungry. We'll eat in just a minute. Will you help me set the table? Anton, can you tell Frank to come down for dinner? He's been sulking in his room all day. Monica started taking out the china while I headed upstairs to fetch my son. The loud rock and roll music echoed down the hallway from his room, caught a faint hint of cigarette smoke. I knocked on the door. There was no response. Turn on that racket and open the door. I'm sticking to my strategy on parenting on this one, even though turn on that racket and open the door, it's like, yeah. That's just fun. There's still no response. Yeah. Frank, turn on that racket and open the door. The stereo in Frank's room clicked off. All right. He unlocked and opened the door. What do you want? Dinner's ready. Great, I'm starving. Frank heads upstairs to the dining room and I followed after. Oh, no, wait. If you pick that option the first time around, it gives you the chance to call him out gently on the cigarette smoking. I like that line. That's fun. So we're replaying that part. Like, there's nothing quite like the mortifying reality of your parents finding you doing something that you shouldn't be doing. To say the least. So we're replaying a little bit of that. I won't reread it, though. Turn on that racket and open the door. All right. You unlocked and opened the door. What do you want? Hand over those cigarettes and join your family for dinner. You smoke, don't you? I want enough to do what I want. I'm just asking you to wait until you're out of the house. Frank heaved a sigh, handed me the packet, and headed downstairs. I followed him to the living room. Which I think is more than fair. Like, I can't stop you, but at least don't do it while you're here. I don't know if he said that with the cigar in his mouth or not, but hey. The table was prepared and Monica was ladling food onto the plates. Come on, have a seat. It won't be tasty if it's cold. As we started eating, the room went quiet. Monica's cooking was as delicious as ever, but I had the feeling that wasn't the reason nobody spoke. Monica was the first to break the silence. Say, did you know they refurbished the grocery store? I don't know if you remember the owner. He's been there every day for the past 30 years. Can you imagine doing the same job for so long? What if you were president for 20 years, for example? "20 years of that? I'd be dead." Considering what everybody's scared of, let's not do that. Honestly, would that be so bad? Monica measured me with her eyes for a moment. Anyway, the grocer really is a nice person. He threw in some extra vegetables with my... Frank suddenly slammed his hands on the table, rattling the china. Monica, Deanna, and I stared at him. So this is how it's going to be? We're just going to sit around here like nothing happened? Dad, you could have been killed. Mom could have been killed. Any one of us could have died. Deanna's lower lip started trembling. Monica put her hand on Frank's shoulder. And you will not raise your voice to me, young man. I'm putting my foot down as the man of this house. I like this one much better, though. And what would you have us do? I don't know. Talk about it? Maybe? Frank got up from his seat. Fine. Let's talk about it. Sit down. Frank took the seat again, scowling. Do you think I will let us go down so easily? That I like that. It's a little cocky, but really, I get on this one. I get to be a little cocky. You think I'll let us go down so easily? Frank smirked. No, but it's not up to you, is it? My security assured me that they took all the necessary steps. The same security that let a person get shot in front of the palace? Frank, listen to your father. If your father says we don't need to worry, then we don't need to worry. You have to trust him. Monica turned to me. We all have to trust each other. Things calmed down a bit at the table. We finished our food in silence. Frank got up first and retreated back to his room. Monica lifted Diana up and plopped her in front of the living room TV before returning to the table. She sat down across from me. Anton, he is still young. I know, but there's not much longer we can shield him from the ugliness of the world. He is scared, Anton, and frankly, he isn't the only one. I promise, if there truly is any threat to this family, you'll be the first to know. She got up, stood behind me, and massaged my shoulders for a moment before leaving me alone at the dining room. I sat along at the table and drank my glass of Kadej. Had I been lying to Frank and Diana? Was the threat to my family truly over? Time would tell. I like those scenes. We'll get a few more of those kind of scenes in the game, where it's just you and your family, and it's those scenes are probably the best scenes in the game, in my opinion. And I love the political stuff. Protests erupt around Sordland and the death of Burning Circus. More political violence. Protests in Gruney. Political chaos. Everybody's calling for protest. Young Sordland vandalized shops. NFP offices burned. Yeah, we're gonna have to put a stop to this. Alright. So, this is how we can react. The political situation around the country has escalated. Chief Strategist Lucian Galade has prepared several action plans that we can execute. What we do to address the intensifying political climate? Call for restraint on national television. Label all protesters as traitors. Expand the police by deploying all recruits and training. Or we can just do none of this. Or we can visit affected towns in person. I will be honest, I am nervous about all of them. But I think since this is a political move and not one brought to us by one of our ministers, we'll stick to a political solution, which is either televised speech or going in person. I think we can do more good by going in person. This is not exactly an age of television just yet. Not for Sordland, where many of the regions still don't have electricity. So if they see the president in person, that should help a little bit better than me just going on TV. The other two are just like political, not a political solution. This is borderline tyrannical. This is definitely not a political solution, and that's what we're doing in this particular situation. So we will do that. President Rayne talks to protesters. President Anton Rayne visited towns around Greater Holsword and Gruney regions, which were heavily affected by the protests and riots that popped up around the country, triggered by the deaths of Circus. He was seen talking to the protesters and listening to the concerns of the citizens. This is a powerful message to the Sword citizens that the government is walking among them and listening to their problems. Holsword is desperately trying to restart Sordland's economy after the recession, and this political unrest is not helping, said a Sword scholar and professor of law at Holsword State University. So I believe that was the better option. Of course, we could have just got on TV and called everybody a traitor, but it was late in the evening. The Maroon Palace was finally getting somewhat quiet when I returned to my office at the top. I eagerly approached my chair and sprawled out on it. It had been an exhausting day, just like every day since I took office. Have a little drink. Have a little drink. Cap off today. I poured a little whiskey for myself and had a sip. It felt like the best solve after a long day of work. I glanced downward at the windows and saw Sergei and the guards waiting for me by the main gate. I heard a couple of knocks on the door. My secretary, Olivia, soon entered. Mr. President, Mr. Tusk is here to see you. You had a meeting with the Lotherberg spokesman? I'm so sorry for not giving you proper notice. Don't worry about it. Thank you for your understanding. After a moment, Mr. Tusk swaggered into the room. I had met Sordland's most prominent businessman once or twice, but never alone. He had large jowls, blindingly shiny shoes, and the air of someone who was used to getting his way. Anything to drink, Mr. Tusk? Water? Whiskey? Cognac. Preferably from before you were born, sweetheart. I'll check the supply room. That's blatant. Olivia backed out of the office, shooting me an apologetic look as she did so. Walter hung up his hat, which I could see was lined with mink. He fixed me with a long, hard stare, which broke into a toothy grin. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm here to congratulate you. We both sat down. My business partners and I wish you a successful term as the leader of our nation. Oh, thank you, Mr. Tusk. I had no chance to say this at the ball with all the panic. We are very much looking forward to working with you. Thank you. I'd like to build a profitable relationship between us. That being said, there are some concerns of mine and the people I represent, which I would like to take this opportunity to clear up. I'm listening. The ruined state of the economy in Sordland has influenced everyone. The recession hit us all hard. Walter pulled out a box of cigars from his jacket. I had these brought from Lesbia, the best cigars in the whole continent. Would you like to try one? I mean, I know what he's going to ask. I might have, as a wise man once said, if you can't drink their booze, smoke their cigars, then lie to their faces, or tell them no to their faces, what's the point of being in politics? I grabbed one out of the pack. Walter lit it up with his large engraved lighter. Now we are talking. A man who knows pleasure in business. Walter grabbed himself a cigar and lit it up as well. We looked out at the city scenery as we both puffed away. I heard that you purchased stock from Armadine Industries in Arcadia. Smart buy. They are developing new gadgets that are going to be profitable. With risk comes reward. I expect a very good return on investment. You have a keen eye for business. I will buy a couple of thousand of shares too to expand my portfolio. Hope the investments pays off for both of us, President. His eyes wandered away for a moment. You are having a good start to the term for sure, besides the recent troubles. Glad that you decided to promote the free market, which is the only thing that can get us out of this mess. The ability of the free market to evolve is hard to dispute. I couldn't have said it better. Or could I? We really think there are many elements where our capital could be of help to the government. He grinned. The high-speed rail investment was a great decision. The business logistics will improve and boost the economy once finished. The greater Horsord and Gelsord regions needed better transportation links. Connecting our two largest economic powerhouses was the right call to make. We can be close allies. The group can help you get Sordland out of the recession, which will be the key problem to solve in your term, and could even determine your re-election. Let's start with a gesture of goodwill. Soon the investment project contract will be awarded to one of 3 main contenders. He pulled a check out of his pocket and slid it towards me on the table. My personal bank details were listed on it, with a deposit of 500,000 Sordish Ren ready to be transferred. That was 6 months of a president's salary. If the contract was somehow awarded to Underhall Construction, they would not only work hard and deliver, but also do it on time. What do you think, Mr. Rayne? Wouldn't that be good? He put his index finger on the check. There was a noise by the door. Noise by the door. Olivia Suno was standing there, holding a tray with a bottle and 2 glasses. I'm so sorry, Mr. Tusk, but all I could find was a 1942 Savigny. Hope that's acceptable. She quickly put the tray on my desk and walked out. Tusk eyed her as she left. Remind me to visit your office more often. Now, where were we? Do we have a deal? Now, here's the reality of the situation. I'm trying to think of an artful way to say this, but I don't really think I can. There is no way around it. Anything you do at all, that is corrupt, spoiler warning, if you play the game, it will come out. Because there's no way you can play any of these terms without taking somebody off. So, well, I take that back. If you are not going to be an autocrat, which means if you're not going to control the media, the flow of the information to the press, you better believe that anything corrupt you do will come out. So you can't choose a corrupt path at all. There are other paths, like if you want to go nationalist autocrat or communist dictatorship, things like that, where you can accept bribes and do other things because nobody's going to be able to stop you once you claim total control anyway. But since we are proudly filthy centrist and we're not going to control the press in that way, we have only one choice. No, I will make my own decision. Walter sighed and pulled the check away, putting it in his pocket. If that's what you came here for, then we are done here, Mr. Tusk. My goal was to begin a mutually beneficial partnership, but besides that, it was good to spend time together. Oh, I almost forgot. Please say hello to Mr. Karanti for me. He smiled. Have a good evening, President. Walter stood up, grabbed his jacket, and made his way towards the door. He closed the door behind him. I gathered my things and prepared to finally head home. As I walked out, I noticed Livia standing there, covering up her typewriter for the evening. If I may be so bold, Mr. President, did you accept his offer? Of course I didn't. How could she even ask me that? The other girls have told me about all kinds of dealings that went on during the Alfonso administration. I wasn't sure if you were that kind of president. I most certainly am not. She and I took a moment to look out over the lights of the city before heading to the elevators. Yeah. For better or worse, we are an honest politician, which is going to be very rare in this country and this game and our history. So the next time around, we're going to put a pin in it here. Next time around, we're going to have to meet with Marcel Karanti. We'll finalize the contract for the L1 highway. You already see the report, local police working with nationalists. We'll have a measure coming up, if I remember correctly, we'll have a measure to deal with that. But first we'll make a decision on legislation for economic relief. Yeah. So we'll have a busy stream next time around. Still dealing with the fallout, but I won't say things are getting better because they're not right now, excuse me. And that would be just a flat out lie. But things are progressing, and hopefully we can get a hold on everything and make sure that our economy comes around. And because my brain is totally fried, I apologize. I'm actually doing this after I got the second Moderna shot. Minor brain fog, but yeah. I will leave it here. Thank you guys very much. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. And check out vnsnow.com. A lot going on over there. Love to have you a part of our content. And leave a comment if you're enjoying. Would you, if you knew it was going to come out, would you go ahead and take the bribe? If you knew for a fact there was nothing you could do to stop that information from getting to the press, would you have taken it? I think most people would say no, but there are some chaotic types among us who've been like, yeah, I would have still taken the money. But, yeah, clearly we're being honest, so that's a no. But yeah, now I'm just rambling. I'll see y'all in the next one.